Hey, Melissa Hostetler here with GO-180 Fitness, bringing you our end of the workout stretch routine. This is what we always do, or some version thereof, depending on if you can get on the mat, but this is the mat version for those of you that asked for it. I always like to start with a quick child's pose. Knees are wide, big toes together, walking your hands out in front of you, press into your hands, draw back long. As you pull into that stretch, think about breathing a big breath through the whole back of your rib cage, expanding through that circle of the ribs, filling up with air, squeezing everything out. So take a breath or two in that position, and then you're going to come up and out of it. We'll start right with the left leg. Left leg comes through. Think about squeezing your right glute cheek as you come forward. You're squeezing that right glute cheek, getting that stretch at the front of that right leg. Right arm comes up and over. I think up a couple things. Up and back, and up and over. You're holding that stretch. So I continue to squeeze my right glute. Continue to drive forward into that stretch. Lifting the body, stretching up and over, stretching through the front of the thigh, your quad muscles, but they attach up, and so you're stretching those muscles, the hip flexors, those raising muscles as they attach up to the spine, which is why you're leaning back and over, trying to catch all of it in that same stretch. Hold that for a couple more seconds. Nice. Then you're going to bring that right arm across, drop that shoulder, take your head over to the left, continue driving forward. So I'm still getting that forward drive to the front of my right thigh, holding that stretch, getting that little extra stretch from my neck, dropping that right shoulder down, taking my jaw over to the side, continuing my breath. Anytime you're doing a stretch, you want to make sure you don't hold your breath through the stretch, but breathe through the stretch. Every time you have an exhale, it makes a big difference in lengthening and relaxing the muscles, so that steady breathing is important. Next, you're going to bring your hands to the inside of the mat, and just let that leg fall out, as it will. If you're rolling to the outside of the foot, it might not go far for you, it might go far. If you can draw down into it by bending your elbows and drawing into that space, do so. I'm just trying to find what is a good stretch. This continues to stretch the front of that right leg, and now we're starting to add that left leg in and get what is essentially a piece of that pigeon pose that you do in yoga or figure four. You can add to it even a little bit more by adding that side-to-side rock. But I'm just drawing down into the stretch as much as I can, holding on to it, finding my steady breath. Good. Feel free to play your own music or keep these silent. You can always play your own music with it. This is a real-time stretch, which I don't do very many of these, so it's kind of long. You're going to push back. Take that left leg out in front of you, toes are up, push that heel down, draw your hip back, and hold that stretch. Now we're going to the other side of the leg. Right now we're starting to get that back side of the leg. We're looking for, if your calves are really tight, you might feel this more when your calves are behind the knee. This really is a stretch for the back of your thigh, your hamstrings, but sometimes you'll find you're very tight in your lower leg. So you've got two versions of this to kind of catch all the muscles. Regardless, you're hinging from the hip and keeping your back nice and long. So I'm drawing my hip back, driving my heel into the mat, holding that stretch. What I'm not doing yet is rounding down into this position. Holding steady. Then we're going to change it just a little. You're going to soften the knee, or I just say crack at the knee a little bit. Hands come on the two sides of your legs, still pushing down to that heel, drawing back to the hip, drawing your body down into that. That should move that stretch for almost everyone up into your hamstring. So if it wasn't there already, it should move up in your hamstring. If it was in your hamstring, it should move higher in the hamstring. So you're drawing into that stretch. Any of these stretches, you can always add a little wiggle if that feels better to you or you feel like you get a better stretch. But you're keeping a steady and continuous draw on that position. Feels so good. Nice. You're going to come out of that slowly. You're going to bring that toe, so my heel's lifted, my toes are down, I'm bringing my toes back by my knee and sinking down into that stretch. So you're looking for a little stretch through your ankle, through your Achilles, the back of that calf there. You're sinking down into that stretch and just holding that there. Good. You can add that side-to-side movement again, just pressing into it as much as possible. Good. And that same leg then, that left leg, I'm just going to scoot over a little bit. You're going to extend that leg out beside you and draw down. So I'm pressing my leg to the floor with the strength of my leg. I'm drawing my body towards the floor, and then I'm also drawing my body towards my foot. So I'm adding into that stretch as much as possible to get that inner thigh. Finding my breath. Exhales are very important here. And just keep that idea of continuously pressing towards your stretch. You shouldn't be doing it so hard that your face is grimacing, but it should be that you've got pleasant face, relaxing, you're just pressing and drawing into that stretch the whole time. Nice. Very good, very good. Bring that leg in, and we're going to do that same routine on the other side. So that right leg is going to come through. Squeeze that left glute cheek, driving forward, getting that stretch to the front of that thigh. You bring that left arm up and back and over, and holding that stretch. So I keep that continuous idea, squeezing that glute cheek, driving forward into that stretch, drawing my body up and back and over, trying to get that whole connective chain there in the front. Nice. Stay with this one. Find your pleasant breathing. If you find that you're just not very balanced, it's easier just to do it inside a chair or a wall. Your arm that is free can just balance you, and that might help you press into that stretch a little bit more by having a little bit of balance, whether you use a block or a chair or a wall. Nice. Bringing that arm across. You're going to drop that left shoulder, head goes over to the right. Hold that stretch. So I'm opening that space. We're going to open that space between jaw and shoulder. Continuing my drive forward. I'm still squeezing that glute cheek, driving forward through the front of that left thigh. Finding my breath. This is a good one. As you take your big breaths, you take your biggest rib expanding breaths, you'll find it stretches different ways. You might feel it stretch back in your shoulder, in that space between shoulder blade and spine. Good. Hands come down to the inside of that leg. You're going to let that right leg fall open. And just as much as it will, draw down into that space. Bending your elbows, drawing down into that space. Hold that stretch. Continuing that stretch forward into the front of that thigh. It feels so good. Add that little bit of side to side. Breathing stays steady. You're keeping that mindset now of split. Each leg has a stretch, but it's different in where it's located. So I still have that forward press, stretching through the front of my left thigh. And now I've added that right leg in, and it might be more in your hip. Shouldn't bother your knee, but it should be more in your hip. But it might be on the inside of that thigh, just depending on where your tightness is. You're going to slowly gather yourself, push back. You're going to tip up the right toes, push that right heel down, hinging from the hips. Again, so I'm tight today in my calves. So as I hinge from my hips, as soon as I start forward, I feel that stretch kind of start down low. And as I stay in it, it slowly kind of moves its way up as that calf releases a little bit. You'll be able to find your tight spot because you'll feel it right away when you roll into it. A lot of people are tight right behind the knee, and so they need the two versions of this stretch. One, those muscles are tight back there, and that's great to get to them, but you've got to also get to your big hamstrings, and they're harder to reach if you're tight in your calves, your upper calves. Hold on to that stretch. Continuing to drive that heel down, draw the hips back, drawing. Good. Then you're going to soften that knee, hands come down on the two sides of that leg, press into that heel, draw back, drawing myself down, allow myself to round in this one. Feels so good, you can really feel it jump up into your hamstrings where it's supposed to be, and get that good stretch. Just keep continuing that draw. Breathing is steady. Face is relaxed. I like the reference Kelly Starrett does to the pain face. You know, if you're doing something, your face is all scrunched up, you know that it's too much, it's hurting you, it's causing problems. So if your face is scrunched up, your muscles are too. You gotta find that relaxed, you can breathe, steady spot. That's where you wanna be for stretching. All right, toes are gonna come back by the knee. So my heel is raised, my toes come down, and then I sink into that position. I'm looking for that stretch around that ankle structure, into my calf, into that Achilles area. This is not a huge stretch, but it is a good one because you can really compress the body down into it. Hold steady. We're almost done. All right, hanging right there. You can add that little motion. Any of these, you can add that little side-to-side movement if you want to augment the stretch. And then we're going to extend that leg out the side. Extend that leg out. Think of pressing that inner thigh to the ground, draw yourself to the ground, and draw yourself towards your foot. So I'm drawing over to that right side, drawing down towards the floor, pressing that inner thigh towards the floor, finding my breath. Keep that idea of continuous drawing. We're almost finished completely. Our last one you can do standing, or you can sit back for a good stretch across the toes and the base of the foot. You're coming out of that, tucking your toes behind fire toes. In other words, I'm on my toes, my heels lifted, and I'm sitting back, finding that stretch through my feet and ankles. Hands come behind the head, interlaced fingers, pushing back with my head, forward with my hands, opening the elbows wide. Then take that left elbow to the sky, find that big stretch through the body. We'll do these briefly, but you can always do them a few more seconds if they're where you need to stretch today. Come back to the center, and you're going to go the other way and hold that stretch. Finding those nice big breaths, continue that backwards press with that forward push of the hands. Come back to the center. High five, my friend. You have done it. Great job. Signing off. I hope you had a good stretch, following a good workout, and I hope to see you in the gym.